هاي.
انا مش عجب. انا
هاي.
اقفلوا اقفلوا، كله يقفل المايك.
قولي له هم بيقول لك شكرا حاجه.
يا جماعة ممكن كله يقفل المايك؟ ممكن كلنا نقفل المايكس بس؟
السلام عليكم. السلام عليكم مس هبة.
السلام عليكم مستر احمد، ازي حضرتك؟
Hello, how are you?
انا وحضرتك
الحمد
طيب.
لله. Is Mr. Sabir here?
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. منور يا أستاذنا.
الحمد لله. Mr. Muhammad, how are you doing?
الحمد لله.
Okay, because we're late, I suppose we should start now. Miss Heba, are you there?
ايوه معاك، انا عملتك هوست تقريبا خلاص كده اهوت.
Okay.
اوكي، ومستر محمد صابر ان شاء الله يحضر ويكون معاك برضو.
Because he gave me the wrong code, and that's why I've been trying to access. I think he gave me yesterday's meeting. Mr. Sabir.
maybe.
Hey, Dr. Ahmed.
Okay, you're to blame for this late appointment.
I'm really sorry.
No, it's okay.
How's it going, Mr. Ahmed?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Okay, so I apologize for being 5 minutes late. It's just a technical problem. So let's get the ball rolling. Let me share my screen with you. And Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, I've just muted everybody so that you can hear me clearly. Before we start, just write anything in the chat box just to make sure that you can see and you can hear me well. Great, great. Thank you, Ms. Dua. Thank you so much. Great job. Very good. Okay, so let's start. Today's lesson is, I believe, one of the crucially important topics, not only in the English language teaching nowadays, but in teaching in general. Whether you are an English teacher, a math teacher, a science teacher, an Arabic teacher, if you are a teacher of any subject, I think this concept and this idea is very important to everybody, which is cooperative learning. Maybe a lot of people are familiar with this concept. However, there are other misconceptions that are usually related to cooperative learning, and this is what we're going to discuss today, inshallah. And a special focus will be given to Kagan cooperative learning strategies, which is one of the approaches or one of the new and successful approaches in cooperative learning. Here are the learning objectives for today. We're gonna identify what's meant by cooperative learning. We will also talk about the theories that underpin cooperative learning, because some people think of it as an approach or as a method of teaching. When we talk about approaches, when we talk about, for example, communicative language teaching or the audiolingual method or the grammar translation method or whatever, there should be a learning theory that this approach or this method depended on. However, some methods come without a theory, like the total physical response, for example. Give me just 1 minute to disable annotations. I've just done it now because some people write things on the screen. Okay, so some methods come without a theory, and that's one of the main differences between the words approach and method. An approach is something that is underpinned by a learning theory, while a method does not necessarily have a learning theory that support it. Okay, so we're going to talk about the theories that underpin cooperative learning. And here is a very important milestone in our presentation. Hello? Okay, which is the differentiation between collaborative and cooperative learning. And here, what a lot of people fall into that trap. They are very similar to each other. However, there are some differences that we're going to talk about. We're going to evaluate collaborative and cooperative learning. We're going to compare this to traditional methods of teaching. Then we're going to here definitely say it's part of the evaluation, saying why it's better. We're going to talk about Kagan in the last 30 minutes, inshallah. And we're going to analyze some of Kagan's structures and learn how to choose a structure based on the activity that I'm doing in my class. So now let's start with a simple icebreaker, but this icebreaker will be beneficial in our session today. I want every one of you now, I have more than 80 people now, I want every one of you, just for 1 minute, to think about a fun time that you spent before, somewhere before. Again, think about a fun time that you spent at a certain place before, and that, inshallah, when this lockdown of coronavirus ends, you dream of revisiting that place again. Again, I'm repeating. Think of a fun time at a certain place that you would like to revisit. We're gonna talk about this in pairs. I'm gonna put you in rooms now, okay? And this activity won't take a lot of time. First of all, you will have 1 minute to think. Maybe you can write down some notes if you would like to. You can just prepare that. You can talk about where this place is, when did you visit it, with whom, how long you stayed there, and why you love this place. And when I divide you into pairs, inshallah, this is what I want you to do. There will be speaker A and speaker B. Speaker A is going to speak for 1 minute without interruption from the other speaker, okay? And when the time is over, speaker B should be keeping the time. He should say, okay, the 1 minute is over. Thank you so much, I'm gonna start. Then speaker A is going to speak also for 1 minute, also without interruption, okay? So, and after, and speaker A at this time will be keeping the time. When the minute is over, he should say, thank you, the minute is over. That's all, and then you will rejoin the session again. But who will be A and who will be B, this is very important. When I put you in groups, in pairs now, just ask yourselves about the names, about the first name, and depending on the alphabetical order, you're gonna start. So if there's Ahmad and Heba, for example, then Ahmad is first, and Heba is second, and so on. So before I put you in the rooms, let me check that you understand this task. First of all, how long do you think the whole task should take you? How long the whole task should take you? Huh? 2 minutes only? What do you think? Huh? 2 or 3? Yes, 2 minutes when you join your partner in the room, but overall 3 minutes. You have 1 minute now to prepare, then 2 minutes, 1 minute for each partner. So the overall is 3 minutes. No, it doesn't depend. We will have to be very strict with the timing. I'll give you 1 minute to think, to brainstorm ideas, to write down some notes. This is 1 minute. Then 1 minute speaking for student A, 1 minute speaking for student B. All right. So who will speak first? Who will speak first? We have A and B. Who is A? What does it depend on? Excellent, Miss Nasreen. Yes, it depends on the alphabetical, yes, the alphabetical order of your names. Thank you, Mr. Ahmed Hassan. Excellent. Yes, great. All right. I have some people raising hands. May I have you just after we finish this task? Some people have just joined now. You don't know what the task is about. Again, you will just think now. Your 1 minute starts now. Okay. You're going to think about a fun place that you visited before and that you would like to visit again in the future. Think, where is this place? When did you visit it? With whom? How long? Why you love this place? You have 30 seconds from now. I'm going to divide you into pairs now. I don't know if Miss Heba is still here, but it seems that the rooms are not working now, right? I can't find the option of the breakout rooms now. She left? Okay. Sometimes it happens when the number is huge. It's okay. No, you don't have to call her. We will imagine that we finished this, that you just we're in a room, or if this is within a classroom where you have 20 or 30 students, they will be joined together in pairs, and everyone is going to talk about this. All right. Let me ask you a question here. In my instructions that I gave to you in this simple task, is student A or student B, is either of them supposed to correct or give any kind of feedback to the other? No. So he will just be listening, and notice here that when the time is over, there is what here? Praising or thanking your partner. Maybe you can add this to your instructions if you would like them to give feedback to each other. It depends. It depends on the nature of your students. If you believe that they can give feedback to each other, that's fine. All right. So if they don't give feedback, what do you think the benefit of this activity, other than the fact that it might be an icebreaker? Why doesn't the teacher just do it with the whole class? Ask individual students to come and to speak about that. Speaking for fluency. If they don't know each other, feedback isn't preferable. I completely agree. Yes. Okay, to practice speaking, a kind of cooperation, that's fine. Yes. Maybe getting to know each other if the target is, yes, so it's a fluency activity. We're going to come back to this later on, but just remember very well how the instructions were given. All right, and forgive me for the fact that I couldn't put you into rooms, but the option is disabled here. I don't know why. Okay, so let's first talk about what's meant by cooperative learning. Cooperative learning, you need to understand that it's one of the fertile areas of education nowadays, and there is a lot of research on this aspect nowadays. One of the definitions, one of the oldest definitions of cooperative learning is Johnson & Johnson 1999, when they identified cooperative learning, when they said it exists when students work together to accomplish shared learning goals. Okay, what do you think first of that definition? Do you think this is a general or a specific definition? This definition down here. What do you think? Is it a general definition or is it a specific definition? General. Yeah, excellent. Yes, I completely agree. It's a very general one. Because here we just said they work together. We didn't say how they're going to work. And we didn't specify any kind of learning goals. We didn't specify any kind of teaching or learning context. Okay, it could be in any subject matter. It could be in English. It could be in math. It could be in gymnastics. So this is a very general definition of cooperative learning. This is from 1999. All right. However, we have another definition here in 2007. By Felder and Brent, in which they define cooperative learning as two students working in teams on an assignment or project under conditions in which certain criteria are satisfied, including that the team members be held individually accountable for the complete content of the assignment or project. Compared to the previous definition, what do you think of that one? Is it still a general one or is it more specific? Yes, Mr. Kamil, excellent. Yes, Mr. Muhammad, exactly. And Mr. Ahmed, it is much more specific, okay? Yes, because we added here that there are certain criteria. They didn't talk about the criteria here, but in the research itself, in the paper itself, they put some criteria. And there is also another aspect here, which is not in the first definition, which is the individual accountability. In the first definition, we said that they work together, but maybe 5 or 6 people working together and just one person doing the work. But here, they put another condition that there should be some sort of individual accountability, like roles within the class. All right. I'm going to start with you now. A very important activity. I want you to be very alert with me in that activity. I'm going to show you 3 different strategies for 3 different activities that teachers can conduct within their classrooms. And I want you to think of the teacher's role, the students' roles, and the learning goals within each activity. Again, you're gonna see now how many activities. I'm sorry because a lot of people raising hands. I'm gonna take your questions, but I don't want just to interrupt the flow of speaking now. If you have anything urgent, you can write in the comments. After this activity, I'm gonna receive some questions. And I'm gonna, of course, receive all your questions by the end. I'm not gonna leave this meeting until I respond to all your questions. Again, so how many activities am I gonna show you now? 3, excellent, 3 activities, 3 classroom activities. And I want you to think of 3 things: the learning goals in these activities, the teacher's role, and the students' roles, all right? I'm gonna come back to these definitions later on after we see the activities together. This is strategy A. First of all, look at this picture here. Does it ring a bell? Teacher asks question, he gives think time, students raise hands, teacher calls on a student to answer. One student answers the question, teacher responds, maybe thanks the students, asks the class to clap for that student, and so on. Yeah, it is traditional. I completely agree. Do we use it? Yes, it's a teacher-student interaction. Excellent. Yes. Do we use it in our classes? Yes, sometimes. Yeah. Look, I just want to advise you of something here. Don't just, be very impulsive in your decision making. Like when you see a certain wonderful activity, an amazing activity or strategy or approach, don't just take it to the extreme and stick 100% to that approach and reject any other approaches, because this shows like you might be like some sort of narrow-minded. Nowadays, you should be open-minded. It depends on the nature of the class. You might apply different strategies for different classes. I always use this strategy. I can tell you that I almost use it within every class. And I'll tell you why, all right? So that's strategy A. We're gonna evaluate it later on, but let's move on to the second one. In the second one, we have a group of students. Let's read the directions down. Teacher asks a question or gives projects. He says, work as a team and help each other. Students distribute roles. Each person has a job. Like one student can be a reporter, like the speaker of the group. Another student is material collector. Another student is captain or recorder or leader. Another student is a recorder or writer. They work for 20, 30 minutes, doesn't matter. And the teacher monitors the class. All right? What do you think? Yes, it is more cooperative. It is more collaborative, definitely. What about the interaction pattern here? Is it teacher-student or student-student? Student-student, yes. Which one involves more interaction, A or B? B, very good, very good. All right, now let's move to C, but have a final look here because we want to compare B and C together, all right? So the teacher says, work as a team, students distribute roles, the teacher monitors, there are different roles within the group. Strategy C, the teacher asks a question, there is think time, the teacher assigns specific roles, student to student structured interaction, teacher monitors. What are the core differences between C and B? This one and the previous one? More organized. It could be more organized. Yes, Ms. Fatma, excellent. There is a fixed task. Mr. Muhammad Abdul Muhsin and Mr. Yes, excellent. There is a specific task. Who distributes the roles here in C? The teacher or the students? The teacher, the teacher. Look here, teacher assigns specific roles. And in B, students distribute roles. All right, what do you think is better in your classrooms? That the teacher distributes the roles or the students distribute the roles? B for adults? I partially agree. Okay. All right. Teacher, both. Why not be flexible depending on the activity itself? I completely agree. All right. Which one is more effective when we talk about learning? If you have some specific learning goals, which one do you think is more effective, B or C? C, why? Yes, I agree. Why? The teacher knows better. The teacher is in control. He knows their skills. All right. The teacher is controlling. There is a specific task. Okay. All right. Let me ask you some yes or no questions here. In strategy B, when students distribute the roles themselves, is learning equal? Is learning equal? Do they learn exactly the same thing? No, no. All right, very good. This is according to cooperative or to modern cooperative learning strategy, strategy B. They say this is like a prescription of inequitable workloads. Again, a prescription of inequitable workload. Why? There is a very well-known theory called hogs and logs. Have you ever heard about this before? I'll try to write it here. Sorry. This is logs, but I did something by mistake. Have you heard about that before? What's meant by hogs and logs? Yes, Miss Fatma, excellent. Someone may be dominated and someone may be dominating. Yes, okay. I don't know if this is related to that, but Like I read Dickens' novel, A Tale of Two Cities, but that was like 10 years ago. I used to teach it. In A Tale of Two Cities, I don't even remember the name of the characters, but there was the two of the main characters. One of them was a lawyer. He's very good at speaking, but this lawyer doesn't do all the work. There is somebody who does all the work, who analyzes the case and who writes the argument. And there is, yes, Sidney Carton, and yeah, exactly. And this expression was used, but it wasn't logs. It was the hogs and dogs. This is a more informal way of expressing the same concept. Hogs and dogs, or hogs and logs. What's meant by that is that there is one student who is bossy, who is a leader, who is dominating. Like when you tell them, okay, you are 5 or 6 people, you start working together. This student will be like leading the group and will be distributing the role himself. And he will tell other students, you do that, you do this, I'm the leader of this group. Okay, this happens when you put students into groups without giving any assignments or specific roles to them. Less confident students, what are they gonna do if I am an introvert, if I am less confident, if I am a low achiever? What am I gonna do in such an activity? I'll be disappointed. I'm gonna hide. Yes, exactly. I'm gonna sit back and hide. Hide doesn't mean that you're gonna disappear. Hide means that I'm gonna do the easy tasks. You know, I quite remember the first methodology course I've ever attended in my life. It was in 2007. In 2007. Before such theories of cooperative learning were made, I mean, the concept itself was very new back then. I owe a lot to my professors who gave me this course. But back at this time, this was how they taught us. They taught us, okay, have your students work in groups, assign roles like the writer, the speaker, the leader, the timekeeper, the material collector, and so on. And this is how we work, and it was much better than traditional approaches. It was much fun. But nowadays, I mean, this sounds a little bit obsolete. For this reason that we're talking about, the less motivated students, the low achievers will just sit back and hide. He will say, okay, I'm the timekeeper. So we have 30 minutes to work on this task. I will be holding the time for you. What do you think? Somebody who is just holding the time during the whole activity, what type of learning is he making? Is he learning anything, academically speaking? He's passive, yes. He's not learning. He's not learning anything, all right? Again, I'm the material collector. So we are working on a project. We're gonna make a chart. I'll go and buy the chart for you, or I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna find markers for everybody. I'm gonna get the watch for the timekeeper. Like, I'm the material collector. Thank God I did my job. I'm gonna sit back and relax and let other people do the job, all right? Also think of the leader. The leader will be somebody who is very bossy, who is giving commands to people. You do this, you do that, you keep the time, you write, you're gonna speak, and so on and so forth. So if you have like 5 or 6 students, maybe a couple of them, academically speaking, will be making progress, will be really learning, while the other roles are not effective in the learning progress. All right? So this is one key difference between strategy B and strategy C. Yes, but here there is no role taking here. You might have it here when you have specific roles, and we're gonna explain this. All right, Concerning student-centered, we have now, let's remind you of this. Let's go back to A. Let me ask you a couple of questions here. In strategy A, how many students are actually involved in the activity? If you have a couple of questions, yes, 1 or 2 students maximum. All right. How do you think the rest of the class feel? How do the other students feel? Yeah, they are listening, but yes, bored, disappointed if they don't know the answer. Exactly. All right. Don't you think that some students will feel happy? Yes, exactly. Yeah. I'm a low achiever. I don't know the answer. Thank God the teacher doesn't ask me. He only picks students who raise their hands. I'm very happy. I have nothing to do. Okay, I can't sleep. So again, this is of course highly traditional. This is more cooperative if we compare it to A. It has more student interaction. This is more advanced where you assign specific roles. We're going to talk about this and talk about how you assign specific roles. Now let me ask you a question concerning the icebreaker that I planned to do with you at the beginning. When I told you you're going to work in pairs, let's go back quickly to that one. Yes, this one. When I told you that you're going to do it in pairs, I want you to look here and you tell me, this is closest to A, B, or C? Yes, definitely it's C. Why C? Did I distribute roles, or I told you you distribute roles yourselves? I set the conditions. I set the time. I said there are roles, there is A and B, and I even told you who's going to be A and who's going to be B. I told you this is going to be alphabetically. So depending on your alphabetical order, you're going to start A and B. All right. And let me ask you another question here. Is learning here equal or not? Yes. So that's why it's similar to C, where learning is equal. In B, learning isn't equal. All right. Let me ask you another question. In such an activity, can any of the students hide and sit back? Exactly. And that's why this is typical of strategy C, and we're going to talk about this shortly, inshallah. Of course, in research, all the research that was made proves that it's C, it's strategy C, that has more learning gains. And in addition to the learning gains, there is something else that we're going to talk about right now, which is the social aspect in such an activity. The social aspect in B and in C. In B, I want you to remember that again. There is a leader who gives orders. Students have different roles, separate roles from each other. Roles aren't equal. They are not fully interacting, because as I told you, if I'm collecting material, I'm just getting the material and I'm going to sit back. If I'm holding the time, I'm not actually interacting. And maybe the kind of interaction that I'm going to do is a passive kind of interaction, because I'm going to tell my group members, hurry up, we're late, please go on. I'm not helping. I'm actually spreading anxiety amongst my classmates. So think of the kind of interaction here. Think of the social aspect here. Here, we might have, or we will probably have a negative social aspect because we are not on the same side. Here, and of course, it depends on how I'm going to structure the task, but I'm going to show you that when you set certain criteria, you can make all these students on the same side, having a mutual goal, not having separate goals. All right? Okay, so in a nutshell, we can say that the concepts on the left apply to traditional types of teaching. When I say, for example, that a good class is a quiet class, this is a traditional concept. Like a few years ago, this is what we were told. If your class is quiet, then you have excellent classroom management, right? Have you ever heard that from somebody before? That the more quiet you are, the better you are as a teacher? Okay, but in cooperative learning, we have, you know, a different concept, which is the concept of the healthy noise. All right, till now, yes, I know. The healthy noise, the noise that causes interaction and better social relationships. All right. In the past, we used to tell our students, keep your eyes on your own paper. You can say this still, but only in exams, all right? But within class activities, when we apply cooperative learning, we don't say this. We sometimes say, help your partner, solve it, coach your partner, give positive feedback, say thank you, all right? So there is a kind of positive interaction here. In the past, we used to say, sit quietly. Nowadays, we can say, get up, look at what others did. And this is what we're going to explain in Kagan, inshallah. Okay? The headmaster or supervisor. Ask him to take the TESOL, inshallah, or to learn about cooperative learning. Okay. So now we're going to talk about, and this is actually the most demanding section of our session today, because it's confusing to a lot of people. Cooperative learning versus collaborative learning. Let me tell you at the beginning that before 2000, the sound is low. Is that better now? I'm getting closer to the computer. Okay. Before 2000, this is what both concepts were treated the same. So cooperative and collaborative learning, they were actually used interchangeably. But recently, researchers started to make or to draw a distinction between cooperative learning and collaborative learning. I want you to look at this picture here, which shows exactly what collaborative learning is. I want you to tell me, this picture, is it closer to strategy B or C? Is it closer to B or C? B. Yes, excellent. Why? You know, because we have different roles being played. By the way, this is a very positive environment. If students are working on a project like that and they have different tasks, that's fine. I'm not attacking this. We are evaluating today, and I'm going to evaluate this at the end. And I told you that I'm not completely against traditional ways of teaching, but we have to maintain a balance. We have to develop an understanding of when to apply what and with whom and so on. Yes, we have different roles being applied here. So collaborative learning is a method of teaching and learning in which students work together as a team to explore an important question or create a project. Activities might include debates, joint problem solving, collaborative writing, study teams, and group projects. Is there anything mentioned about specific roles here? No, very good, okay. In cooperative learning, I want you now to look at this picture here. How is this picture different from this one? Without reading anything, how is the picture different? It can convey the concept itself. They work as a team, the first one. In the first one, they work as a team as well. Roles, everyone is involved, yes. More controlled, yes. All will learn, yes. Okay, now answer my question. Nobody wrote this here. Is the learning equal or not? Yes, thank you, Mr. Somebody wrote equal here. Mr. Hassan, excellent. Yes, we have equal learning. If one of these students left his position, what's going to happen? The structure will collapse. All right? If one of them leaves his position, the structure is going to collapse. But it doesn't necessarily happen here. Okay? Here, learning is not equal. All right? Here, in cooperative learning, students work together in small groups. This is very important. On a structured task, this is even more important. We have a structured task. Unlike collaborative learning, students are, and we mentioned this at the beginning, individually accountable. There is individual accountability. Everyone is accountable for the work, and the group as a whole is evaluated, ensuring that no student can piggyback on the work of another, can rely and sit back. All group members must believe, and this is again a very important concept that you have to establish at the beginning of the year. If you're going to adopt cooperative learning in your classes, you're going to exert a lot of effort at the beginning, but you're going to save a lot of effort throughout the whole year. At the beginning, you have to make your learners believe that this is better for every one of them. You have to make them believe that each person's effort benefits the whole group, the rest of the group. All right? Depending on, before we go to this quiz, let's just revise this again. So far, we talked about cooperative learning and collaborative learning. And I want you always to put this in your mind while you are drawing this distinction between them. The distinction between cooperative learning and collaborative learning is much like this distinction between C, which is typical of cooperative, and B, which is typical of collaborative. All right? Do you have any questions about the differences? Because I'm gonna give you an online quiz now. I know this is shocking to some of you. Okay, we will go to this website and I have a quiz there. I'm going to give you the code and we're going to do it. This quiz is on the differences, but I can receive, let me say, 3 questions now. Ms. Nihal, do you have something to say? Hello? Hello? Okay, Mr. Bakri? Do you have a question?
No.
You have a question, sir?
No.
Okay, thank you. Maybe you raised your hand from the Mr. Muhammad. Do you have a question?
No, thank you, Mr.
Okay, thank you. I think you raised your hand earlier. Okay.
Maybe by
So,
mistake. Thank you.
no, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay, bro. Mr. Sabri, hello?
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum assalam wa barakatuh.
I have a problem in applying this strategy, especially for governmental school or large student classroom. I work in a public school. The students of the class is about 60. How can I deal with this strategy with large numbers of students? Thank you.
Okay, I wouldn't act as a perfectionist and deceive you into saying that you can do it perfectly in public schools. I cannot say this. I cannot deceive you. I cannot deceive myself. Okay. In order to apply, I mean, this is not a problem with the strategy itself. It's a problem, you know, we're gonna get into an unfortunate discussion about the educational system in Egypt and the facilities that we have. You can apply this in large classes, even with 60 students. By the way, I applied it in Nile TESOL in January. I had more than 60 people attending my session, and I applied that. So it's not a problem with the number actually, but it's a problem with the facility. Do you have the space to have your students move? You can apply it if you have the permission to take them outside, for example, to the playing area or to the hall, if the hall is big enough, and you can do it there. All right. I did it before with 30 and 40 learners, and that's fine. Okay. But because I know the governmental schools in Egypt where you might have, I taught there for a few months before. It wasn't a governmental school, it was a national school, you know, called the Madaris al-Qawmiya. I don't know how they translate this in English, because it would be national. But I taught to like 60 students, right? And I know how difficult it is. And I know that, for example, you might find the supervisors there or the principal telling you, no, don't take your students outside. So I cannot help with that, all right? What I can tell you is that you can apply it with large numbers if you have space, that's all, all right? Students everywhere are hyperactive. Allahu musta'an. All right, so I think, does anybody else have a question? I pressed lower hand by mistake. If you have a question, raise your hand, please. Okay, so now let's move to the quiz. Please, every one of you, forget about me now. I'm gonna switch off my camera for a few minutes until you finish the quiz. Go to that quiz, but keep listening to me. I'm gonna give you the code to the quiz now. I will give a gift to the 3 winners. We're gonna have 3 winners. These 3 winners are going to receive a gift from me, an educational gift, huh? Not chocolate, because I'm distant from all of you. All right. So once you go to this website, you can enter this code 439087. I'm going to write, that's the website. I'm going to write it in the chat box if you want to copy and paste. How to answer? It's going to be an MCQ. I have 15 questions. They are all MCQs. You will just press the correct answer. You will read some statements. And you're supposed to decide, does this apply to cooperative learning or collaborative learning or both. Again, cooperative or collaborative or both. You're gonna read the statement and decide. The code again, I'm sorry. 439087. I cannot copy it, I don't know why. I'm gonna write it for you. 439087. I already have 11 people now. How can I go to the quiz? Go to this website. Join my quiz.com. Join my quiz.com. That's all. I have 20 people now. I'm going to give you 1 minute to join. This is the quiz again. But you can just click this. I mean, copy and paste it in Safari if you have iPhone, or in Google if you have an Android. I have more than 30 people who already joined. Great. The code again, once you go to this website, he will ask you for a code. Enter this code, 439087. I'm gonna wait for 20 more seconds. The quiz will take us exactly 3 minutes, or less than 3 minutes, from 2 to 3 minutes. Great, I have more than 40 people now. Hmm. 10 more seconds. Join myquiz.com. Just copy it, copy and paste it. If you have a laptop, paste it in as a URL. Just go to Google and write it, join myquiz.com. 50 people, 5 more seconds, and we're gonna start. The code is 439087. You're gonna have 15 statements. For each statement, you're gonna choose, does it apply to cooperative learning, strategy C, collaborative learning, strategy B, or both? Okay, let's start now. more seconds and I'm going to end the game. Great job. Okay, almost everybody finished. Almost, not everybody, but I'm sorry I have to stop now. So these are the results. Third place, Mr. Muhammad Subhi. Second place, Ms. Soha. And first place, Mr. Muhammad Munir. But still we have a list. MashaAllah. Okay, so I think that's enough. Let's get back to our session. Okay, is everybody back? Great. So this is a very effective online tool that you can use in your class. No sound. No, the sound is working. Okay, check your own device, please. So I know the questions were difficult, right? Because the differences between them are, are not really clear. There are, slight differences between them. Too fast? Yes, I put only 10 seconds for each question because of the time. Okay, it's challenging, to be challenging. Anyway, so before I go to now, we will focus on cooperative learning itself. But before we go to that, let me just a minute. All right. The principles that we're going to read together now, they differ from one theorist and one researcher to the other. This is what I want to show you, something that I skipped at the beginning. Since the concept itself started to appear few decades ago, it attracted the attention of a lot of researchers and a lot of theorists. And many came up with models of cooperative learning. So this is something very important for you to realize theoretically, that there is no one way of cooperative learning. It differs from one theorist to another. So as you can see now, I listed only 10 of the theories that appeared. Yes, collaborative is B and cooperative is C. Yes, Ms. Hayat, correct. You want the answers? I can share the file with the questions and the answers on my page, all right, and on ITTI page. Okay. So again, there isn't one model that is called cooperative learning. Kagan came up with a model, Johnson & Johnson, and we have their definition at the beginning. Kagan, and this is what we're going to focus on today. Today we're going to talk about Kagan. As you can see, we have Kagan in 1985, but you need to know that he modified his work and he published another book in 2009. And this is what we're going to talk about today. So today we're going to talk about Kagan 2009. There is also Johnson & Johnson, another model in 1999, Salvin and Madden, and so on. Every one of them came with a certain definition, similar definitions, but different criteria. If we look at the things in common, they almost agreed on these principles as a difference between cooperative learning and collaborative learning. They said that in order to say that this activity or that this strategy is cooperative, it has to satisfy all of these 5 criteria. I'm going to skip it now because I want to give a special attention and a special focus on Kagan. Kagan came up with 4 criteria only, which we can use this acronym for. We call them the PIEs, Kagan's PIEs. PIEs, P for positive interdependence, I for individual accountability, E for equal participation, S for simultaneous or simultaneous interaction. If any activity satisfies these 4 conditions, Kagan would say, yes, this is cooperative learning. If one of them isn't there, is absent, so for example, if there isn't equal participation, if there isn't simultaneous interaction, if they are not working at the same time, for Kagan, this is not cooperative learning. All right, let me explain them quickly. Positive interdependence means that we have mutual goals and we are working on the same side, and maybe you found this in the questions. We are not in a competition. In collaborative learning, you can make competitions between groups, all right? In collaborative learning, it makes a difference if I have high achievers or low achievers, because if I have high achievers, they will of course finish faster than the low achievers. In cooperative learning, it doesn't matter. And in Kagan, according to his strategies, the groups have to be mixed abilities. So you don't put the high achievers in one group and the low achievers in one group. No. In his structures, we have groups of 4. These 4 students are high achiever, mid-high, mid-low, and low achiever. So we have different abilities within the same group. So positive interdependence, we are not competing, we are on the same side. Individual accountability, we talked about this before. Equal participation, we also explained it. And simultaneous interaction, this is very important because in collaborative learning, we can work online. I do something today and you do something tomorrow, we can finish the project within a week. This is collaborative learning. Cooperative learning, we have to be working together in the same place at the same time. This is very important. I have some messages, let me read them quickly. Yes, because maybe I didn't explain all these at the beginning. The difference between Jigsaw actually is one of Kagan's strategies. So the Jigsaw already exists in Kagan. Yes, Mr. Islam, the students should be in heterogeneous groups rather than homogeneous groups. We're gonna watch, it's just a 4-minute video about Kagan's structures now. This video will give you a holistic idea of Kagan's structures, and after the video I'm going to tackle with you 4 structures in detail.
doesn't it? So what's wrong with that? The first problem is we set our students against each other. When the teacher calls on Peter to answer, Susie lowers her hand in disappointment. Ah! But when Peter begins to falter, she shoots her hand. Approach to teaching that actively engages every student. Let's look at the problems traditional teaching creates. Students sit in rows. The rule is no talking. The teacher presents information or a new skill. To engage students, the teacher asks the class a question. One student responds at a time. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? So what's wrong with that? The first problem is we set our students against each other. When the teacher calls on Peter to answer, Susie lowers her hand in disappointment. Ah! But when Peter begins to falter, she shoots her hand back up, waves it wildly. Pick me, teacher. A subset of students compete for the opportunity to shine, a competitive class skill. To engage students, the teacher asks the class a question. One student responds at a time. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? So what's wrong with that? The first problem is we set our students against each other. When the teacher calls on Peter to answer, Susie lowers her hand in disappointment. Ah! But when Peter begins to falter, she shoots her hand back up, waves it wildly. Pick me, teacher. A subset of students compete for the opportunity to shine. A competitive class is not a brain-friendly learning environment. The next problem is students spend very little time actively engaged. The teacher is doing most of the talking most of the time. When we finally do engage students, it's one at a time. It's like being in a long line waiting to be served. A big percent of the class is somewhere between mildly interested and comatose. Many students don't want to turn. They feel they can't or don't want to compete. Johnny is shy. Monica is lower achieving. Juan is still learning English. These students don't want to be singled out. Don't call on me. They hide. They opt out. It's no wonder we have an achievement gap. Traditional teaching engages some of the class, but many students can easily slip through the cracks. Kagan engages all students. We turn things around, literally. Instead of facing the back of a classmate's head, we turn students around to face each other. Instead of calling on one student at a time, we can call on all students. Using the Kagan structure timed pair share, the teacher asks a question. In pairs, partner A shares for 30 seconds, then partner B shares for 30 seconds. Everyone has a turn. Sharing with a partner is safe. There's no need to hide. In just a little over a minute, we engage every student. In the same amount of time in the traditional class, we engage one student. What's better, engage one student or engage every student? Absolutely right. Everyone learns more. It's not just the amount of engagement that matters. It also matters how we engage students. With Kagan structures, we engage students with interactive pair and team structures. While students master academic curriculum, they develop essential social skills. They learn teamwork skills. They develop communication skills. They practice leadership skills. These are the very college and career readiness skills our standards call for. In teams, students are no longer isolated or competing against each other. They celebrate each other's successes. They are on the same side. Cooperation leads to kinder and more caring kids. We create buddies, not bullies. Kagan's simple yet powerful structures transform education. In numbered heads together, teammates put their heads together to review. Everyone is more active and the content becomes more memorable. In quiz trade, students repeatedly quiz classmates. They have so much more fun being up and active than working alone. In rally coach, partners solve problems together. Instead of independent practice, students have a peer to coach them and provide immediate feedback. Why teach the traditional way when we have so many alternatives to engage every student? Kagan isn't something we think might work. Kagan is scientifically research-based. Hundreds of studies on cooperative learning show tremendous academic and social gains over traditional learning. With Kagan, teachers are engaging their disengaged students. Struggling schools are making dramatic gains. Entire districts are raising their test scores. Kagan works. Kagan works because Kagan creates full engagement for every student. Engaged students aren't bored or disruptive. Engaged students enjoy school more. Engaged students learn more. Kagan, it's all about engagement.
Okay, a lot of people are asking for the link. Just a minute, please. Okay, so that's the link. You can watch the video later on. But let me now explain in further detail what's meant by these structures. This is what we're going to talk about now. In the video, they talked about, you're welcome, sir. They talked about timed pair share. This is actually what we applied at the beginning of the class. When I told you that everyone is going to think for a minute, then you're going to be working in pairs and everyone is going to speak for a minute. So actually in an activity that consists, that lasts for 3 minutes, in just one activity, you applied, or sorry, you activated the whole class. You made the whole class participate. You got my point? So the whole class participated in one activity. In contrast to traditional approaches where, sorry, the camera isn't working, okay. In contrast to traditional approaches, if you have this activity, if you have such a speaking activity, you ask the question, you ask one student to come and share his response for 1 minute, another student who would share it with the whole class. So at the same amount of time, you engaged only 2 students. All right, so that's what the whole theory is about. Of course, in addition to the social perspective, the social aspect of that theory, where you make your students believe that they are on the same side, they are not in competition. Okay, everybody, why the skills are transferable? Because they reverse roles. Sometimes I speak and you listen, then you speak and I listen. Sometimes I lead and you follow. Sometimes you lead and I follow. Sometimes I give a feedback, and sometimes you provide feedback. So this helps them develop more social skills like teamwork, like leadership, like decision making, and so on. All right, so this is time per share. I don't want to spare much time on this. Now I'm going to talk about numbered heads together, which I use very often in my classes and which I believe can be used everywhere. In numbered heads together, as you can see, these are the steps. First, each student in the team has a number. This is very important. You typically in Kagan, we have groups of 4. And in these groups, you say, for example, this is student A. A, B, C, D. This is very important. If I have, for example, 20 students in my class and I have groups of 4, then I have 5 groups, and in every group I have student A, B, C, and D. So first of all, you set these rules at the beginning and you say, okay, you are A, you are B, you are C, you are D, and so on. Then this is very important that students work individually first. To solve a problem, to answer a question, it doesn't matter, okay? Then after they finish, so you can give them, for example, 1 or 2 minutes, depending on the task, to work individually. After that, you say, okay, now join your groups. So after they work individually, then they share their answer with the group. Your job as a teacher in the first step is to make sure that every student is working, that every student is trying to answer the question, regardless of whether it's correct, whether it's wrong, it doesn't matter, because in this step, they're going to share the answers, they're going to discuss, they're going to reach an agreement, all right? This is very important. You have to tell them, please agree together on one answer. Why? Because after they finish, the teacher selects a student from each group, sorry, from any group, to feedback the rest of the class. So I can say, for example, group 4, student B, answer the question. Now, in this stage, his classmates cannot help. Why? Because you already gave them time to share the answers. And you set these rules at the beginning, and they know that when the teacher calls a single student, we cannot help. So they will try their best to help each other when you make them share the answers. All right? So, for example, if I have 10 questions, MCQs, I can call one student from every group to answer the question. I can ask why. Typically, the student can say why because they had a discussion over each question. So there is individual accountability. There is equal participation because they attempted the exercise individually at the beginning. And then there is interaction. When they sat together, they had a discussion, they reach an agreement, and then everybody is expecting his or her turn. I have some questions. Yes, the teacher is a monitor, of course. Definitely you as a teacher can help. You can intervene if you thought or if you found out that they are not following your directions. You have to interrupt them, definitely. The weak ones here will not depend because you made them work individually first, and you monitored them and you made sure they are working individually. All right? So yes, definitely the student is in the center of education here. Yeah. I use this a lot in my literature classes too, in open-ended questions. All right? I don't want to get into that discussion. There will be another session, inshallah, with Rilo, maybe in 2 weeks from now on teaching literature. And I'm going to show within this session how to apply cooperative learning in a literature session, inshallah. All right? So this is numbered heads together. I want you to think now, what type of activities can you use this strategy for? I told you it could be with MCQ questions. What else? What type? Does it work, for example, with true or false? Does it work with subjective questions, open-ended questions? What do you think? Fill in the gaps. Definitely, definitely. Yes. I don't recommend it with, the MCQ questions and true or false, as I recommended in the open-ended questions and fill in the gaps. And short answers, yes, yes. Because when students have, subjective questions or open-ended where they have to provide short or quite long answers, they sometimes need to, to come together to a discussion. Maybe I wrote a piece of information which you missed here. We can complete the work of each other. All right? Look, you can use different types of activities with different strategies. I mean, it doesn't matter. You understand your students better and you know how to apply this. You have, as a teacher, to develop a sense of choice for activities and a choice for activities that work with particular students and doesn't work with other students. All right. Another strategy is called fan and pick. In fan and pick, simply, you prepare cards, and in the cards, students have the question up and the answer down. The question up and the answer down. Or the cards may be folded where they cannot see. So for example, you give every group a set of cards. How can I divide? No, we said that the students in most Kagan's or in all Kagan's structures are divided with according to the mixed abilities. Don't put the high achievers in one group and the low achievers in another group and so on. It's better if you have different abilities within the same group, okay? So again, you give, for example, 10 cards to the group. You say, okay, student A, come, take the cards. Student A, fan the cards. Fan means like if you have cards, which we play, you fan them and you ask, look, usually you sit at a table like that. You tell, for example, student A to fan the cards, and then who's next? B. B should select a card, choose a card out of these 10. All right? What does the card have? The card has a question and an answer. The only one who sees the answer is the one who picks the cards. So in our case now, who can see the question and the answer? Excellent, Mr. Muhammad Yahya. Yes, student B. Student B. Student B is going to read the question aloud. Again, student B is going to read the question aloud to student C. So student C should answer the question. Student C should answer the question. Again, I have a set of cards. These cards have questions and answers. All right? Student A fans the cards. He has them, okay? Or you can put them in the middle of the table. I mean, variations are okay. Student B selects the cards. He reads the question aloud, okay? He reads the question aloud. So this is, in our case, the one who is selecting the card is student B. He will read the question aloud. He will ask student C to answer the question. All right? Student C answered the question. Student B will tell student C, what do you think of his answer? Do you think it's right or wrong? So now, one student answered the question. Another student will either agree or disagree. And then student B, who has the question and the answer, will reveal the answer, and he will say, yes, exactly, correct, you are right, or no, I'm sorry, this is wrong, the correct answer is so and so and so. Okay, and the element of giving positive feedback or praising here is very important to establish among your students, because again, there is a big focus on social skills. Okay, so again, in this activity, let me ask you very important questions here, and this will show whether you got it or not. Yes, in this activity, did everybody participate doing something or not? Your answers, okay. Yes, they did. My second question, are the roles the same? Is there equal learning here? No, no. So far, this looks like what? Like collaborative learning, like strategy B, right? So far, it looks like B, like collaborative learning, but it's not. Why? Because we're going to reverse roles now. In the first card, it's student A who fans, student B asks the question, student C answers, student D confirms or gives feedback. Then we give the cards to the next student. So C will pick up the question, he will ask D, A will give feedback, okay? And so on and so forth. In the third question, student D will pick the card. He will ask the question to A. Student B will provide feedback, and then and so on and so forth, because you have 10 cards, you have 10 questions. So they will, there is some sort of role taking turns. You got that point? Yes, so now it is completely cooperative. Now the learning is completely equal. They are on the same side. This is not a competition. And the target here, and this is very important, that you tell your students, don't score each other. Your job is not to score your friend. Your job is to help, to do your job perfectly, to praise if he said something correctly, and to give gentle feedback if it's wrong or if you disagree, and so on. So this is another strategy. Then, for which activities can you apply this? Let me ask you some yes or no questions. Can we apply this for yes or no questions? True or false? Yes, definitely, definitely. Can we apply it for MCQs, multiple choices? Yes, definitely you can. Can we apply it for WH questions with short answers? Exactly. I don't recommend it in the gap filling questions, because usually in the gap filling, you have a whole passage. You don't have a single question, all right? So it works perfectly if you can put one single question per card, all right? I think this is the last structure that we have today, quiz trade. One of my most favorite. I almost use it in every vocabulary class in my vocabulary and spelling class in my school, the quiz trade. In quiz trade, simply, again, it's a matter of cards, and I'm going to explain it as if I'm doing it in my class. In my vocab and spelling classes, we usually have words and definitions. And in the spelling classes, I usually introduce 20 words per class, because this is the curriculum, okay? And the focus is not on the usage as much as it is on the spelling itself. So I introduce the words and their definitions quickly, and then I prepare from Quizlet cards that have the word and its definition, the word and the definition at the back, the word and the definition at the back. Simply, if you have 20 words, you can get 20 cards. Every card has a word and the definition at the back. And you give each student in your class a different word. Again, if I have 20 students, give them 20 different cards. If you have 30 students, that's fine. If you have 30 students, that's fine. Give them 20 and repeat other 10, it doesn't matter, okay? So every student now has the word and the definition at the back. Yes, it is printable from Quizlet. If we have time, I'm gonna show it to you once we finish now, okay? So you have the word and you have the definition at the back. You just cut them and you give them to the students. What happens is, you make your students work in pairs, They mix, or you mix them. You can control how you mix them. I do it in circles. I make a circle inside and another circle outside, and they work in pairs, and I tell them to to rotate the circle so that they change the friends. Listen to the directions now. I have the question, I have the answer. I go to my partner, I ask him or her the question, and so I show them, for example, the definition, okay? And I ask him or her, which word is this? He or she will provide the answer. It could be correct, it could be false. If it's correct, I would say excellent, yes. If it's false, I would say no, wrong, try again, and so on. They try again until, even if he doesn't know, I will show the word to my partner. It doesn't matter. So I asked him or her a question, then B will ask A another question, because he or she has a different card. You got my point? So now we, again, there is turn taking again. So I will be asked the question. He or she will show me the definition. I will try to guess the right word. If it's correct, I will be praised. If it's wrong, I'll be given feedback or another chance, and so on. Yes, I usually tell them to show the definition and to ask their friends to try to remember which word is this. Okay, you can do it in true and false, and you can do it in MCQs. It doesn't matter. I sometimes do it in grammar. In grammar, for example, there are MCQs. All right. So I show my partner the question, and there are MCQs, and he tries to find the correct answer. And at the back, I have the correct answer. I am the only one who can see it. But don't forget, there is a very important step now. We have A and B. Each one asked the other a question. So this is called quiz. Quiz. What is trade? Trade is that after we finish, I ask the question and he or she asked the question. We trade means we exchange the cards. This is very important. We switch the cards. This process takes exactly 1 minute. Like I take 30 seconds asking you the question because it's only one question, and then 30 seconds you ask me the question. After 1 minute, the teacher gives a signal for mixing again. So we trade the cards and I go to another partner with another question. But let me ask you a question here. Why do you think it's very important to trade the cards? Why don't I keep the same card and go to another partner? Yes, Mr. Muhammad Subhi, yes. Exactly, Mr. Ahmed al-Naggar, exactly, Ms. Amal, to avoid repetition, to know all the words. So if we switched, if we repeated this process 5 times, 5 times means I was exposed to 10 words, 10 different words. I asked 5 different questions and I was asked 5 different questions. Thank you so much. Thank you. So you got my point. This is how learning, takes place within the group. So again, the steps. Each student in the group is given a card with a question and an answer from the topic. Students move around the room. Teacher tells students to stop and pair up. By the way, it is much fun because they stand up, they turn around the room, they raise their hands and they keep moving. When I say stop, they clap their hands to the nearest partner and they stop and they ask each other questions. By the way, sometimes in certain classes, it might not work. If you think your students are not quiet enough, are not going to respond to your instructions, sometimes they make noise, sometimes they take it as fun and they keep running after each other. You know your students better. If you think they're going to do that, don't apply this. We have lots of strategies to apply. Apply it in a different way. I did it in my classes. I take them outside. We have large halls outside the classrooms. I take them, I ask them to line up in 2 lines so that they are facing each other. They don't move around the class and they run after each other. I control it much better when I have 2 lines and I stop in the middle to watch all the students. All right. After they finish, after 1 minute, after they finish asking each other, I tell them, I tell, for example, the line on the right, take 2 steps forward. I drag the last students in the line to come at the front, and the other students, they move, 1 or 2 steps to the right. If they just move one step to the right, they are going to a different partner with a different question. So you can apply it the way you like. All right. So this is quiz trade. So today we talked about 4 of Kagan. Kagan has more than 100 structures in his book, which is available. Anybody who wants the book, I can send you the link after the session, inshallah. We talked about quiz trade. We talked about fan and pick. We talked about numbered heads together. We talked about timed pair share. Just message me on my page, on my Facebook page. I can send you the link to the book. I have the link to the book. It's open. Anybody can access the book. There is one other strategy, but what time is it? No, we don't have time, unfortunately. Okay, so I'm done. If you have any questions. Yes, Mr. Saber, you raised your hand a long time ago. I'm sorry. Yes.
Hi, Mr. Ahmed.
Hello, Mr. Saber.
How are you today?
Alhamdulillah.
First of all, I want to say that this is a great session as usual.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I just dropped a message in the chat box. It's actually a registration link. Okay, I want everyone to fill in this form so that they can get an attendance certificate. Okay.
All right. All right.
It's crucially important.
All right. I'm gonna even. I think all of you can see it, but
yes.
I'm gonna copy it again.
Okay.
And paste it here. Guys, this is for the certificate of attendance. Okay, thank you so much. Just few tips, guys, at the end before we finish. As I told you, there is a big emphasis on the social skills and social interaction between the students in Kagan. So it is very important that you teach your students at the beginning, especially at schools. Adults are more aware and they wouldn't hurt each other. But especially at schools, here the real classroom management appears, that you have to tell them, okay, you're not competing. You have to set these rules at the beginning. You are on the same side. You coach each other. You give feedback, positive feedback to each other. When your colleague or classmate answers the question correctly, praise, say thank you. We stress this. This is number one. Number two, as I told you, this is more teacher controlled. It's not teacher centered. It's not teacher-centered, it is student-centered. It is full of student-student interaction, but the teacher is in control of the process itself, how it is done. So it's very important that when you put them in pairs, when you put them in groups, you give instructions on who is going to start. Because if you say, okay, pair work, start working, they may fight. You work first, no, you work first, and so on. When I told you about the activity at the beginning of the session, I told you in time per share, it's going to be alphabetically, okay? Because I have a group of teachers, a group of adults. I don't know you, so it's better to use it alphabetically because it's safe. In my classes, to make it fun, I tell them, okay, the one with longer hair starts asking the question. The one with bigger ear, the one with a bigger hand. When I tell them the one with a bigger hand, they go and they try to, to see who has a bigger hand, and it's fun. Okay, so try to integrate an element of fun within the session. Just a minute, please. This is better for me so that I can see your messages as well. Okay, so the one with a bigger hand, sometimes even just to make it very funny, I tell them, okay, the one with a longer tongue, and they stick out their tongues and they try to see who has a longer tongue. So he's going to start asking the question and so on and so forth. So this is what I do with my students. So it's very important that you decide, you as a teacher, you set the structure, you tell them exactly what to do, ask some ICQs to make sure that they understand, because if you give them the task, look, it sounds difficult now, and this is very important to consider, because when we teach that to our students, we don't introduce 4 or 5 structures at a time. Let me tell you something. I shouldn't say this, but it happened to me once. A few years ago, I was giving a training session in Alexandria to a group of teachers. It was like 3 years ago. And I wanted to talk about how to teach reading cooperatively, how to apply cooperative learning in teaching reading. And I had a group of about 24 English teachers in a center in Alexandria. In my lesson plan, it was a 90-minute session. And in my lesson plan, I introduced 4 different structures. And I regretted doing that. I depended on the fact that, oh, all right, these are English teachers, so they will get it quickly and it's gonna be fun and easy. Even with teachers, it didn't work as efficiently as I wanted it to be. And after I gave instructions and after I asked ICQs, some of them were confused, some of them were asking questions. And it was my mistake because I tried to introduce 4 different structures within one session, which is something that I advise you never to do. So in your classes, always take it step by step. Introduce, for example, at the beginning, time per share, because time per share is an easy one and it is easy to apply within your class. Once your students digest the time per share, and once they memorize the steps by heart, then maybe in the second week, you can introduce a second strategy, and in the following week, a third strategy. Within 1 month, you can introduce 4 to 5 strategies, which you can mainly use throughout the whole year. You don't have to apply the 100 strategies of Kagan. I've never done this before. I took this course 4 years ago. In 4 years, I didn't apply more than 12 or 13 structures, and I don't need to. Okay, select the structures that you find beneficial, that you believe will work with your students, and focus on them. Don't confuse your learners with lots of different strategies. I'm done. I'm really thankful for all the positive feedback that you are providing. Finally, if you want the link to the video again, or if you want the link to the book, it is available with me. You can take it anytime. You can just send me a message and I'm going to send you the link. And there are 3 winners. They will have a special gift. Just contact me after the session or tomorrow. And thank you so much. I will just take questions from people who are raising hands. Yes, Mr. Muhammad Sabir. Hello. Mr. Sabir.
Hi, Mr. Ahmed. Actually,
Hello.
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Last time. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you all for this. I took like 20 or 25 more minutes.
Actually,
Thank
we
you
enjoyed ourselves a lot.
for bearing with me. Thank you, and I'm reminding you that inshallah, within 2 weeks, there will be a session. It will be a short session, maybe maximum 1 hour, about how to teach literature within ESL classrooms, inshallah. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.